There is a version of you that has never been sick, never been stuck, never been tired in the way that has nothing to do with sleep and everything to do with something deeper running at a frequency that does not match what you actually are. That version of you is not a future version. It is not a better version you have to earn through enough work and enough growth and enough healing. It is the version of you that exists right now, underneath the one you have been calling yourself. And the only thing standing between the you that you are experiencing and the you that you actually are is a single assumption so deeply embedded in the way you see yourself that it has never once been questioned. Not because it is unquestionable, because it is invisible. Because it was installed before you had the awareness to examine it. Because every system in your culture, your medicine, your education, your language itself, reinforces it constantly without ever announcing that it is an assumption rather than a fact. The assumption is this, that you are matter, that you are a physical object moving through a physical world, that what you are, at your most fundamental level, is a body, a thing, a collection of cells and chemistry and electrochemical signals that somehow produces the experience of being you. This is not what you have been explicitly taught to believe. It is deeper than belief. It is the operating premise of your entire experience of being alive. It is the water you are swimming in. And it is wrong. Not philosophically wrong, not spiritually wrong. Experimentally, measurably, demonstrably wrong in ways that the most rigorous physics in human history has been confirming for over a century, in ways that have extraordinary and immediate and practical implications for every single aspect of how you experience your life. And I am going to show you exactly what those implications are. But before I do, I need to plant something in you. A question that I am not going to answer yet, because the answer only lands correctly after you have felt the full weight of the problem it solves. The question is this: if you are not primarily matter, if the most fundamental truth about what you are is not physical but energetic, not solid but vibrational, not a thing but a field, then what has been happening every time you have tried to change your life by changing your circumstances? What has been happening every time you have tried to shift your experience by rearranging the outer conditions of it? What has been the structural mistake in every approach to personal change that begins with the assumption that you are a physical object in a physical world? Hold that question. I will come back to it. And when I do, the answer is going to reorganize something in the way you see yourself that will not go back to the way it was before. I want to start with a number. The number is 1.08 times 10 to the power of 45. That is 10, followed by 44 zeros. That is the ratio, confirmed by experimental physics, between the strength of the electromagnetic force that holds the atoms of your body together and the strength of gravity. The electromagnetic force, the force that is operating inside every atom of your physical structure right now, is 1.08 times 10 to the power of 45 times stronger than gravity. This number is so large that it has no meaningful analogy in the physical world. There is nothing you can compare it to that would make the scale of it comprehensible. And the reason I am giving it to you is not to impress you with a large number. It is to begin dismantling something. To begin cracking the foundation of the assumption that you are primarily a physical object, because the physics of what holds you together is not the physics of matter. It is the physics of energy, of electromagnetic fields, of vibration and frequency, and the invisible, immeasurable by normal standards architecture of energy that makes the physical structure possible in the first place. Your body is not primarily matter. The atoms that compose it are themselves not primarily matter. An atom is more than 99.999% empty space. The nucleus at its center and the electrons moving around it are separated by distances proportionally equivalent to placing a marble in the center of a football stadium and calling the outer walls the boundary of the atom. What you call solid, the table you rest your hands on, the ground you stand on, the body you inhabit, is not solid at all in any meaningful physical sense. It is energy organized at a specific frequency. It is vibration that has achieved the specific coherence required to register to other energy, organized at a similar frequency as something that can be touched. Matter is not the ground floor of reality. It is what certain configurations of energy look like from certain perspectives. This is not new. This is not on the frontier of physics. This was demonstrated conclusively by Albert Einstein in 1905 when he published the paper containing the equation that most people can write but almost nobody has followed all the way to its implications. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. Not energy can be converted to matter under certain conditions. Not energy and matter are related. Energy equals mass. They are the same thing expressed differently. Mass is not something separate from energy that energy can be converted into. Mass is a property of energy organized in a particular way. Matter is what energy looks like when it has been slowed and structured and made coherent at a frequency low enough to interact with the sensory apparatus of other, similarly organized energy. You are energy, not metaphorically, not as a spiritual concept that uses physics language to sound more credible. You are energy in the same sense and for the same reasons, and confirmed by the same experimental rigor as every other result in the history of modern physics. And this fact, this single experimental and mathematical fact that has been established beyond any reasonable scientific doubt for over a century, has implications for how reality responds to you that are so profound and so practical and so immediately relevant to every area of your life that I want you to prepare yourself, because what I am about to walk you through is going to require you to set down the premise that your entire life has been operating from. The premise that changing your reality means changing your matter. That improving your life means rearranging your circumstances. That becoming who you want to be means doing different things with your body in the physical world. All of this is built on the assumption that matter is primary, and matter is not primary. Energy is primary. You are energy first. Everything else, including the matter, is downstream of that. Now I need to tell you about a physicist named David Bohm, because Bohm is where this stops being abstract and starts being the most practically relevant thing you have ever heard about the nature of your relationship to reality. Bohm was one of the most important theoretical physicists of the 20th century, a colleague of Einstein at Princeton, a man whose work on quantum mechanics was so fundamental and so far ahead of its time that it is still being fully unpacked by researchers decades after his death. And Bohm spent the second half of his career obsessed with a problem that most physicists preferred to avoid because the implications of taking it seriously were too uncomfortable. The problem was this: quantum entanglement, the experimental confirmation that particles which have once interacted remain connected regardless of the distance between them, responding to measurements on one particle instantaneously on the other, seemed to require that there was something wrong with the most fundamental assumption in classical physics: the assumption of separateness. The assumption that things are, at their base level, independent objects existing in their own right, connected only by the forces that act between them. Bohm's response to this problem was a theory he called the implicate order. The theory proposes that what we experience as the physical, material, separate world of objects and events and people and things is not the fundamental level of reality. It is what Bohm called the explicate order, the unfolded version of something deeper. The implicate order, the unfolded version, is a level of reality in which everything is interconnected, in which the separations and boundaries that define the explicate world do not exist, in which what appears as distinct objects in the material world are actually localized expressions of a single underlying field of energy and information. The implicate order is not separate from the explicate order. It is the ground of it. Every material thing, every particle, every atom, every body, every event is an unfolding of something that exists, fully formed and fully interconnected, in the implicate order beneath the surface of the physical world. And the movement between implicate and explicate, the process by which the unfolded becomes unfolded, the process by which potential becomes actual, is not a mechanical process. It is responsive. It responds to the nature of the consciousness interacting with it. This is the physics of why you as energy, rather than you as matter, interacts with reality in a fundamentally different way. When you identify as matter, when your operative premise is that you are a physical object in a physical world, you are operating from the explicate order. You are trying to change things by rearranging the unfolded surface-level expressions of what is actually happening at a deeper level. You are moving furniture in the room while the architecture of the building itself remains unchanged. You can do this. It produces results. But they are slow, effortful, limited by the constraints of the physical world's rules. And they tend not to last because the deeper energetic structure that the matter is an expression of has not changed. The matter eventually returns to the configuration that the underlying energy is organized to produce. But when you identify as energy, when you operate from the recognition that you are not a physical object, but an energetic field that the physical structure is an expression of, you are operating from the implicate order. You are working at the level of the architecture rather than the furniture. And changes at the level of the architecture do not produce gradual, effortful, temporary rearrangements of the surface structure. They produce immediate, structural, self-sustaining reorganizations of the entire explicate expression because the explicate is always and automatically a faithful expression of the implicate. Change the energy, and the matter reorganizes around it. Not eventually, structurally. At the level of the mechanism that makes the matter what it is. I know that this sounds like a large claim, and I want to ground it before I take you to the story I have been building toward, because a large claim without grounding is just another inspiring idea that dissolves by next week. So let me give you the specific scientific evidence for what happens to human physiology, which is a material system, when the energetic level at which it operates changes. Dr. Bruce Lipton spent years as a cell biologist at the Stanford University School of Medicine, studying the mechanisms by which cells respond to their environment. His research, which he eventually compiled into work that became foundational in the field of epigenetics, demonstrated something that overturned the central premise of conventional biology. The premise was that the cell's behavior is controlled by its genes. The DNA in the nucleus is the master controller, and the cell does what the DNA instructs it to do. Lipton's experiments showed that this was wrong. What actually controls the cell's behavior is not the DNA. It is the cell membrane, the boundary between the cell and its environment, and the signals that pass through that membrane from the environment into the cell. The DNA does not control the cell. The environment signals the membrane, and the membrane signals the DNA. The external energetic environment is what determines which genes are expressed and which remain dormant. Change the energetic environment, and you change the gene expression. Change the gene expression, and you change the physical structure and function of the cell. The matter follows the energy, not the other way around. And the energetic environment of your cells is not primarily the food you eat or the air you breathe or the physical conditions of the external world. It is the electromagnetic field generated by your own consciousness. Your thoughts and emotions are not abstract events happening in a non-physical domain that have no effect on your material body. They are measurable electromagnetic signals that create the energetic environment to which your cells are constantly responding. Your body is not the container of your consciousness. Your body is a material expression of the energetic field your consciousness is generating. Change the field, and the physical expression changes with it. This is not philosophy. This is cell biology. The HeartMath Institute has spent decades measuring the electromagnetic field generated by the human heart, which is the strongest electromagnetic generator in the body, producing a field measurable several feet outside the physical body in every direction. This field is not passive. It is informational. It carries a coherence signature that varies dramatically based on the emotional state of the person generating it. High coherence states, what the HeartMath researchers call heart coherence, produce a field that interacts measurably with the nervous systems of people in proximity. That is measurable entrainment between human energy fields. Your energetic state is not contained within your skin. It extends into the space around you and interacts with the energetic fields of everyone and everything in your environment. You are not a bounded physical object having effects through physical contact and physical action. You are an energy field in constant interaction with the energy fields around you, and the quality of that interaction is determined by the coherence of your field, which is determined by the state of your consciousness, which is determined by what you believe yourself to be. Now, I want to tell you about a woman I will call Elena. Elena was 46 years old, and she had been, for the previous 2 years, living through what she described as a systematic collapse of everything she had built. Her marriage had ended. Her business, which had been her primary identity for 15 years, had contracted to a fraction of its former self. Her health had deteriorated in ways that her doctors could identify but not explain, a collection of symptoms that did not cohere into a single diagnosis, but that collectively produced a level of fatigue and physical discomfort that made the ordinary demands of her days feel enormous. And Elena, being the kind of person who responded to difficulty by working harder at the strategies that had worked before, had spent 2 years applying tremendous effort and discipline to the project of rebuilding. New business strategies, a new approach to her health, new dating profiles, a new version of the life she had lost, constructed with the same intelligence and the same determination that had built the original. And nothing was catching. Everything she built had the quality of reconstruction rather than creation. Everything felt like the second attempt at something that had already happened rather than the beginning of something genuinely new. She was, she said, running at full capacity toward a horizon that was not getting closer, running harder at something that was not moving. When I first spoke with Elena, the conversation that mattered most was not about her strategy. It was about something more fundamental. I asked her to describe, as precisely as she could, what she felt herself to be. Not who she was, what she was. What was the premise at the base of her experience of existing? She looked at me for a moment as if the question was slightly strange, and then she said something that I think was the most honest answer I have ever heard to that question. She said, "I feel like something that can be broken, like something that has a certain amount of structural integrity, and when enough things go wrong, that integrity fails, and then you spend your time trying to rebuild it. Like a thing that can be damaged." She felt herself to be matter. A physical object with a certain tensile strength that had been stressed beyond its limits. And everything she was doing in response to that experience was being done from inside that premise. She was trying to repair the damage to the object. She was trying to restore the structural integrity of the thing. And the reason nothing was catching, the reason the reconstruction felt like reconstruction rather than creation, was that you cannot create from the premise of being a damaged object. You can only repair. And repair is not the same as creation. Repair is always defined by what was. Creation is defined by what could be, and what could be is not accessible from the matter premise, because matter is always constrained by what it has already been. Matter has a history. Matter accumulates damage. Matter can be restored only approximately to what it was before it was damaged, because the damage leaves a record in the material structure. Energy has no such constraint. Energy does not accumulate damage. Energy reorganizes. A field that was in one configuration can be in a completely different configuration in the next moment without carrying any residue of the previous configuration. Energy does not have a history. It has only a present state. The shift I asked Elena to make was not a therapeutic one. It was not an invitation to heal the wounds of the previous 2 years, or to process the grief of what had been lost, or to rebuild her self-esteem through a better narrative about what the collapse meant. It was a perceptual shift, a fundamental reorganization of what she understood herself to be at the most basic level. Not a body that had sustained damage and needed repair. An energy field that had been organized at a particular frequency for a long time and was now in the process of reorganizing at a different one. Not something broken, something in transition, not matter that had been damaged, energy that was reconfiguring. This is not a reframe in the psychological sense. A reframe is when you tell a different story about the same situation to feel differently about it. What I am describing is something more structural than that. It is a shift in the operating premise that determines what interactions are available to you. When you are operating from the matter premise, when you understand yourself as a physical object that things happen to, the interactions available to you are the interactions available to physical objects. You can be acted upon. You can act on other objects. You can change your position relative to other objects. You can repair your structure when it is damaged, These are the interactions available to matter, and they are limited by the laws that govern matter, including the law that matter cannot be in two places at once, that matter cannot move through other matter, that matter's effects are proportional to its mass and velocity, that matter's reach is limited to the physical distance it can traverse. When you are operating from the energy premise, when you understand yourself as a field, the interactions available to you are the interactions available to fields. Fields are not bounded by location. A field extends through space. A field can interact with other fields at any distance. A field's effects are not limited by physical proximity. A field can be in a state of coherence or incoherence, and coherence produces effects at scales that the matter model cannot account for. The HeartMath Institute's measurements of the heart's electromagnetic field extending several feet beyond the physical body are measurements of matter if you are operating from the matter premise. You have a heart that generates a field as a byproduct of its physical activity. But if you are operating from the energy premise, those measurements are telling you something different. They are telling you that what you are extends beyond the boundary of your skin. That the you doing the interacting with the world is not contained within the physical structure. That your reach is not limited to what your body can physically touch. That you are already in contact with the field around you, already interacting with the energetic states of the people and environments you move through, already participating in a continuous exchange that the matter model renders invisible because it cannot account for it. Elena stayed with this distinction for several days before anything shifted. She did not try to adopt a new belief about herself. She did not attempt to feel like energy rather than matter through affirmation or visualization. She simply began watching her own experience with the question running underneath it. Am I responding to this as matter or as energy? Am I treating this situation as something that is happening to a physical object, a thing that can be damaged, a structure that can be stressed beyond its limits? Or am I able to be present to it as a field in a particular configuration, encountering another field in a particular configuration, in a dynamic and inherently temporary interaction that will leave the field exactly as capable of reorganizing into something entirely different as it was before the interaction began? The shift did not arrive as a revelation. It arrived as a gradual and then sudden loosening of something that had been held tight for 2 years. The sense of being a damaged object trying to repair itself began to dissolve, not because the external circumstances had changed. They had not. The business was still contracted. The marriage was still over. The health symptoms had not disappeared. But the quality of her experience of those circumstances changed completely, because she was no longer experiencing them as damage to a structure. She was experiencing them as the current configuration of a field. And a field is not damaged by its current configuration. A field is simply in one state among infinite possible states. And the transition from one state to another does not require repair. It requires reorganization, which is not something you do to a field from the outside. It is something that happens in a field when the conditions for it are present. When Elena stopped trying to repair the object and started allowing the field to reorganize, the timeline of change accelerated in a way that 2 years of strategic rebuilding had never approached. Not because she stopped working or stopped engaging with her circumstances, but because the quality of engagement changed entirely. She was no longer bringing a damaged object to her interactions. She was bringing an energetic field in a process of reorganization. And the difference in how reality responded to those two things was not subtle. It was the difference between pushing against a wall and moving through a door. Within 6 weeks, the health symptoms that had been unresponsive to 2 years of medical intervention began improving with a consistency and speed that surprised her doctors. Within 3 months, the business had found a new direction that had not been visible from inside the matter premise because it required a form of collaboration that the damaged object version of Elena would not have trusted. Within 5 months, the quality of her daily experience had shifted so completely that she described it as inhabiting a different life than she had been inhabiting at the beginning of the year, not because the circumstances had rearranged themselves into something better, though they were continuing to do so, but because the energy encountering those circumstances was fundamentally different, was generating a different field, was interacting with the world from a different level of coherence. was producing, in the quantum sense, a different collapse of the probability field into lived experience. Because that is what energy does that matter cannot. Energy does not have to traverse the distance between where it is and where it wants to be. A field does not move from here to there. A field changes its configuration. And the reconfiguration of a field is not a gradual, effortful, physically constrained process. It is an event, a shift in the state of the system that can be instantaneous and complete in a way that the rearrangement of matter can never be. The moment the energetic premise genuinely replaces the matter premise, the moment the field of your consciousness genuinely reconfigures rather than the object of your circumstance gradually improving, the reality downstream of that field reorganizes around it, not eventually, immediately, because the matter has always been the expression of the energy. It has never been the other way around. When the energy changes, the matter must follow. It has no choice. The explicate order is always a faithful expression of the implicate. The surface is always a reflection of the depth. The matter is always downstream of the field. Now I want to bring you back to the question I planted at the beginning of this video, because we have arrived at the place where it can be fully answered. The question was, if you are not primarily matter, if the most fundamental truth about what you are is not physical but energetic, then what has been happening every time you have tried to change your life by changing your circumstances? Here is the answer. Every time you have tried to change your life by changing your circumstances, you have been working at the explicate level to change something that is determined by the implicate level. You have been rearranging the furniture without touching the architecture. You have been moving the physical expression of an energetic structure without touching the energetic structure that determines what the physical expression will be. And the reason it has been so difficult, so effortful, so temporary in its effects is not that you have been approaching it wrong in terms of strategy or method or mindset. It is that you have been working in the wrong direction, downstream rather than upstream, at the effect rather than the cause, at the matter rather than the energy that matter is an expression of. The moment you genuinely see yourself as energy, the moment that premise becomes operational rather than just intellectually held, the direction of work reverses. Instead of trying to change the outer expression of your life by acting on the physical world, you begin working at the level of the field itself, at the level of the energetic configuration that the physical world is downstream of. And at that level, change is not effortful, it is not gradual, it is not limited by the constraints of physical reality because it is not happening in physical reality. It is happening in the implicate order, the level at which the physical reality is generated. And changes at the generative level produce immediate reorganizations at the expressed level, because the expressed level is always and automatically what the generative level is producing. This is why reality bends differently the moment you see yourself as energy. Not because you have found a more effective strategy, not because you have aligned yourself more precisely with what you want, but because the level at which you are interacting with reality has changed, because you have moved from the explicate to the implicate, from the surface to the depth, from the matter that the field produces to the field that the matter expresses. And from that level, the physics are different, the constraints are different, the timelines are different, the possible outcomes are different. The entire range of what the field can generate for a consciousness operating from within it, rather than from the surface of its expression, is different, vast, unspecifiable in advance, larger than the monitoring mind can contain, and yet precisely, perfectly, faithfully responsive to the quality and coherence of the consciousness that has finally recognized what it actually is and stepped into the operating position that recognition makes available. You have never been the object, you have always been the field. The only thing that has been different between the life you have been living and the life you sense is possible is the premise from which you have been encountering your own existence. Change the premise, not as an act of will, not as a belief you are forcing yourself to adopt, as a recognition that arrives when the evidence has finally accumulated past the point where the old premise can continue to seem obvious. The evidence is here. The physics is here. The experimental confirmation is here. The story of Elena is here. The only thing required now is the willingness to look at what has been in front of you the entire time and allow the seeing to do what genuine seeing always does. Not give you something new to do. Reorganize who is doing. The field you are is already whole, already coherent at a level beneath anything that has happened to you, already capable of generating through its own intelligence the reality that the damaged object premise could never produce through all its effort. Stop repairing the object, become the field. Let the matter follow. It always does. It always has. It has been waiting, patient and faithful and without judgment. For the consciousness it is an expression of to remember what it actually is. The moment you do, nothing about your circumstances will have changed. But the energy encountering those circumstances will have changed completely. And since the circumstances are always a downstream expression of the energy, the circumstances will follow. Not eventually. Immediately. Because the implicate always precedes the explicate. Because the field always precedes the matter. Because you, in your most fundamental nature, have always been upstream of everything you have been trying to change from downstream. And upstream is where you were always meant to be.